In this video, I will show you how you can create this 3D motion graphics in DaVinci Resolve. So the process is going to be very simple, although it might get a little complicated. So I would recommend that you have at least the basic knowledge of DaVinci Resolve and especially the Fusion tabs as well. And for this one, we have three different segments going on. So we're going to break this video down into three different segments, and you will learn how you can add a fusion composition within a fusion composition within a fusion composition. So basically, you can use multiple fusion compositions within the same composition. That's possible, but for that, you will need to create a compound clip basically. So that will be covered in this video, and you will get to know how to create this amazing looking 3D animation in DaVinci Resolve. So with that being said, let's dive in.
All right, so here we are in DaVinci Resolve, and right now you need to import two assets that we have for this video, which is this key and this pillar PNG. Now you will find this from the link in the description, so make sure to go ahead and download that. All right, so the way that we're going to break this down is, first of all, we're going to create this specific animation frame. So right now I have broken this down right here. So this is the main frame that I started with. And then we will combine this in this 3D format, which is basically this one, this right here. And finally, this composition itself is just the key. And then we have this, both these compositions revealing at the same time, or you can say in the same composition. So let's start with the first one, which is this section right here, where you can see this waveform and then these pillars. So we will start with that. Now for this one, you need a 4-color gradient. You can just drag this right here. Now, of course, you can do this directly on the fusion composition, but I would recommend to do this separately so that you can have a different animation for your composition and not change the background while you are animating. So right now, let me just drag this right here and increase the length. So basically the length that we're going for is 8 seconds. And let me just drag in a fusion composition as well. So you can just drag in a fusion composition and change the clip duration to 8 seconds and let's say 20 milliseconds. So this is how you need to do this, and then go over to the color gradient, and from here you can just copy the same colors that we have right here. So let me just copy this. You can copy the color code from here as well. Let's do the second one, which is this one. This one right here. Again, you can copy the color codes, or you can even use your own color codes. That's up to you. So here you can see we have a similar looking 4-color gradient, although I will change this one a little bit more. So this is basically up to you, but you can just use these color codes and then play around with this and have a nice looking background like this. Now for the fusion composition, let's head over to it. And let me just show you the main composition that I have right here, which is I'm going to be using this in a 3D format. So here we have these two pillars, and they are in the merge, they are connected with the merge 3D, and then we have a transform. And then for the grid, I'm just using this 2D, you can say merge, and that is basically just connecting with the 3D. So this might seem like it's complicated, but this is not that complicated. So let's start with the first things, which are the image plane. Let's head over to our composition and drag in this pillar. Now you can do this twice and make sure to add this image plane 3D for both of these. And with the first one, let's also add the merge and then connect the second one with it. And also let's press Control Space, search for transform 3D, and then finally render 3D, and connect this with the media out. Now over here, I'm going to change the settings for this. So for the first one, actually for the second one, let's just bring this down using the Y, and also move this in a little bit. So let's just go with maybe 0.8 or something. And if you will use the transform 3D now, you will be able to change this like this. But right now, let's just focus on this one. And for the first pillar as well, let's just move this down a little bit. Something around minus 0.1. Let's just go with minus 0.1. All right, so for the waves, what we need to do is, first of all, let's add in a merge node. And then let's go ahead and add in this background, change the alpha to 0, and then add this grid. Use this grid. And now let's also connect this with a multi-merge right here. All right, so go over to the grid and change the row cells to 40 and then column to 50. Change the major line spacing to 0. And from here, let's change this zoom to 4 as well. So if I press 1 right here, this is how it will look. But we also need to add a mask. So you can just use this rectangle mask and change the width and the height from here. So I'm going to go with something like this. And then if we connect this, here you can see this is how it looks. So go over to the rectangle and you can just move this right here. And also change the soft edge a little bit. So something like this. Go over to the rectangle and from here I'm going to change the width as well. And height as well. So something like this. And then let's go over and add a line over here that will animate. So for this one, again, let's add in this background and let's also add in this polygon. Now I'm going to connect the polygon with the background, and the background color, let's change this to some blue color like this, which matches with the background basically. And then we can add this to the multi-merge. And now if you click on the polygon, you can now add a straight line like this. Something like this. And now you can select this modify only and change this. You can say position this right here on this line. Now let's change the border width to, let's say, 0.01 and click on background, press Control space and search for waviness. Now change the waviness to horizontal and you will already see that we have a wave kind of line. Now I'm going to change the strength to 30 as well and keep the scale at 30 as well. So this is how it looks basically. Now let's go over to the polygon and I'm also going to position this a little bit in so this doesn't go outside the line basically. So this is how it looks. And then go over to the grid and from here just go over to 0 frames and then create a keyframe at pan and then go all the way to the end. And then you can just change this right here to maybe 1.5, let's say. So basically this is how it will look. And let's also go over to the rectangle and increase the soft edge, or let's say decrease this to 0.03. So this is how you can create this wave kind of animation. All right, so now go over right here where we have this render ending and let's also add in a color corrector. Now the reason for this one is so that we can just change the, you can say, opacity of these pillars right here. So you can just change the gain to, let's say, 0.7 like this. And now let's go ahead and add in a multi-merge after the merge node, which has this wave basically. And over here, we're going to add our text. So let's go ahead, add in this text, and I'm going to add in another text. So the first one is for this one. Let's just say consistency. You can of course type in anything that you want and increase the size so that this is, and place this above the pillar basically. Now let's do the same thing for this text and let me just copy this paste this right here, bring this down, and increase the size of this one. So let's just call this passion. And now let's go ahead, click on your text and press Control Space and search for glow. Do the same thing for this text as well. And this time we're going to change the settings to 100 and then 0.95 in the glow. Let's copy the settings from here and paste them right here. All right, so here you can see, actually let's go a little lower for this one. So let's go with 0.9 and 0.9. Yes, so let's settle with 0.9 and 0.9. So here you can see in the main timeline, this is how it looks. And now for the final thing, which is basically we're going to add in another image plane 3D. So after your multi-merge, make sure you have selected your multi-merge and click on image plane 3D. Or actually, let me just delete this and remove this right here. Now over here, let's add in this image plane 3D and then press Control Space and search for render 3D and then connect this with the media out. And now just connect this multi-merge to the image plane 3D. Now from here, we're going to just use this image plane 3D to make the animations. All right. And by the way, we don't need this transform anymore. We can just delete this because we're going to be using this one, this image plane 3D right here. Now go over to the 110th frame. And from here, just go over to transform and create a keyframe at Y and then at Z. Now let's go over to 70 frames. And from here, let's change the Y to minus 0.5 and the Z to 1.16. Or let's go a little lower. Let's go with 0.8 maybe. Okay, so make sure this is at 70, but I just created this at 71. So let me just redo this and remove this from here. So at 70, make sure to create a keyframe, and then 70 to 110, this will work. So if I play this right now, and of course, this is going to take some time because we're doing a lot of 3D rendering. Now, let me just go over to playback and change this to quarter. So if I play this right now, of course, it won't look good, but at least you will notice how it looks as an animation. So this is how it looks basically. All right. So right here, if you think that this is too high, you can just bring this lower, and that's what I'm going to do. But I'm just going to use this merge to bring this lower. So that's how you can do this. Our first animation is done. Now we're going to move on to the second animation. But how do we add this to the second animation? The way that you can do that is if you select both of these clips, right click, you will find the option to create new compound clip. So if you click on this, this will give you an option to name this. So let's just type in animate 1, and this will create this composition right here, and this will also be added to your, you can say, folders right here or the assets right here. Now, for instance, if you say that, you know what, I need to do some changes, you can always just go right click over here and then click on decompose in place, click on use clips only, and this will go back to how it was. But let me just undo this because I need to use this animate 1. All right, so now to the next thing, which is basically the second, you can say, frame that we need to create, or the second animation that we need to create, which is this one basically. So right now for this one, we also have a 4-color gradient. For this one, I'm just going to simply copy this, and it's the same settings basically. And I also have a text right here, as you can notice, and otherwise you can add any element to this. You can basically add anything that you want, but just to show you as a reference, I'm using a simple text. So I will just copy this one, is basic settings, just using this font. You can just use any font. This is the size, basically nothing too fancy. This is all that this is. But the main thing is on this fusion composition. So if I go over to this composition right here, you will see that I have this, basically this animation that we just created as a compound clip. I have this imported right here, and then I'm using a image plane 3D connecting it with the merge. And then I also have another image plane 3D, which is basically the outline for this. So you will notice that I only have this Z scale change, otherwise, and also I have this color change, but otherwise it's nothing. And the only thing that we need to animate is basically the transform. So we're going to transform this after 110 frames up till 170. So this is what we're going to do now. So let's head over to actually let's create a new composition. So you can just drag in another Fusion composition, right click, open in Fusion page, and from here just drag in this animation, basically the compound clip that we created, and click on this image plane 3D, and then just merge 3D, and then finally the render 3D. And actually let me also add in this transform 3D because we will need this, and then let's connect this. So here you can see this is how it looks. Now let's also add another image plane 3D and connect this with the merge 3D. And for this one, let's go over to transform and change this to minus 0.1 maybe. And let's increase the size to 1.1. Okay, so now let's use the transform 3D basically. Go over to 110 frames, and from here, let's create a keyframe. You can just right click and click on animate translate group, but for this one, you can just click on these keyframes manually. Now let's go over to 150, change the Y to 0.5 and the Z to minus 3. All right, so now you can also notice this boundary as well. And you can, of course, make adjustments if you want. Just unselect this, lock Y, Z, X, and then you can change the Y from here. And by the way, I'm just going to use this for now, just so that we can make things easy. And in the image plane 3D, I'm also going to change the color. So let's just go with a blue color, something like this that matches with the background. So I think I'm going to go with this one. Again, in the transform, we're also going to create a keyframe at 130 at Y and Z, and then right here at 180. I'm going to actually at 170, I'm going to change the Y rotation to this. All right. Okay, so one thing you will notice right here is basically the distance between these two. So if you see something like this, you can always go over to the image plane 3D, which is the second one, basically the background. Go over to the transform and you can just change this right here. You can just move this in. So you can just go with minus 0.01, and this will just remove this for you. So let's go back to our transform 3D, and from here let's complete our animation. So something like this basically. And now let's go all the way to the end, and I'm going to change the Z rotation a little bit. So let's go with minus 5. Okay, so let me just change the playback resolution so that you can see the animation, how it looks. So basically, this is how it looks. So if you go back to the main timeline and add in a text as well, let me just copy this. So here you can see basically this is how it looks. And the text is very simple. You can just add any text that you want. This is just to show you that you can add more things to it. You can even add more animation to it. That's up to you. But right now I'm just going to keep this simple. Okay, so once you're done with this phase of the process as well, now what you need to do is create another composition just like we created. Compound clip basically. You need to create another compound clip just like we did for this animate. So let's select all three of these, right click and click on new compound clip. Let's call this animate 2 right here. And now we're going to add in another composition. So let's go over to effects, add in a fusion composition. Again, make sure the length is the same, 8 seconds, just like we did before. And let's drag this right here. Okay, so for this one, this is the main composition. As you can see, in this one is all the two, you can say both the animations or both the compound clips are being used in this one fusion composition. And you've already seen how we can do that. But as you notice that we created this compound clip for the first animation that we made right here. So this is this one, and then we used it in the second one, and now we're going to use the second one in the third one, a new composition, and that will be the final thing. So let's just see this. Let's go over to this, and you will see that we have this key, and I'm using a image plane 3D, then I'm using a duplicate so that it can give a 3D effect. Basically, this is a 2D image of a key, and this is the only good one I could find so far. So I think we have to just work with this one for now. I know that there is like this thing right here. This is kind of like a shadow, but it works for us at the moment because we're just using this to learn something new. So as you can see, we have this 3D rotation, and then I have this reveal of our second animate clip basically, which is right here. So we have this imported right here, and then I am using the ellipse to reveal this. Right, so let's go over to our Fusion composition right here, open in Fusion page. Let's drag in the key, add in the image plane 3D, merge node, and then render node. And of course, we need to also add this transform node as well. Now connect this right here. In the image plane 3D, I'm just going to bring this down. Actually, let's use this scale for now. So let's bring this down to maybe 0.5. Okay, so one more thing, we need to add a duplicate. So right here, we need to add a duplicate. So you can just search for duplicate 3D, and this is what you will get. Now change the copies to 20. Actually, if we go over to the transform and change the Y from here, you will see this is how it looks. We need to also change the Z offset to minus 0.001. And now you will see we get these, you can say more frames to this, or you can say duplicates basically, but at least it gives us a 3D look for our 2D asset. And this is how simple it is to make 2D, you can say PNGs into 3D, especially if you have something simple like a key. So this works for us. We don't have to use a 3D object basically, we can just work with 2D. So in the transform, first of all, let me just reset this to 0, and I'm going to create a keyframe at 20 at our Y right here. Then let's go over to 0 and move this down outside the screen. And if I play this, this is how it will come in. And from here, there will be a rotation up till 70. So let's go over to 20 frames, create a keyframe at Y, and let's go over to 70. Let's change this. And let's also do the same thing for the Z as well. So create a keyframe at Z, and then just change this right here. And actually, let's also do it for the X as well. So that this is looking straight. Something like this, so that this is in this direction. So if I play this right now, you can see nice looking animation. And actually, I should move this to 50. So I'm going to go over to keyframes, and let me just select the transform 3D from here, and let's go over to 50, select all of these, and just push them back to 50. So this is how it will look. And then at 70, we're going to zoom this in. So the way that we're going to do that is simply by using the Z and X basically. So at 50, let's create a keyframe at X, Y, and then Z. And then at 70, let's just move this, or you can say zoom this in. So let's use the Z, Y to just reveal this basically. So something like this. And if you play this now, this is how it looks. Now we're going to add in our clip animation 2. First of all, let me add in this merge 1, then let's add in this animate, and then connect this with merge 1. And let's also add in an ellipse. right there. Now over here at 50, we're going to make sure that this is not visible. So for this, we can just go over to level, create a keyframe, move one keyframe back, and then change this to 0. Now over here at 50, let's change the size using the width and the height. Now this is a manual process. You can do this on your own, and I don't think that this will be much difficult compared to the things that we have already done so far. So you can go ahead and do this, but let me just show you how to successfully make a good looking, you can say, transition. So you can just use a light soft edge using something like 0.01, and then from here you can just zoom this in frame by frame. So you need to do this frame by frame up till 70. So let's go over to one frame more. Let's increase the width a little bit so that this keeps in the frame. So make sure nothing is going outside the frame. You also need to be using the center as well. So make sure, let's just go back to 50 and also create a keyframe at center, and then also at the width and the height. So let's go one frame ahead, change this a little bit, increase the width a little bit. And this is basically the minor adjustment that you need to do on your own, using the Y, X to move this around, and then the width and the height to make sure that this is covering the area. So I'm just going to quickly do this now. Okay, so I've done this so far up till this point where we're almost at 70. And then finally at 70, what you need to do is go over and change these to 3. And if you will notice that now this covers the whole screen, because if you keep this at 2, you will notice that this will add some space, you can say, to your animation, and this will not look good. So make sure that the final frame that you do, just change the width and the height to 3. So let me just play this and show you how this looks now. Perfect, right? So if you go back to the main timeline and see how this looks, actually, let me just see this in the, okay, we're already in the quarter. Let's see how this looks. Perfect. So there you have it. So I hope you will find this video useful, and I will see you in the next one.